We're back. Welcome to another episode of Be Your Will podcast. We're reaching close to Well, we're in Washington State near Olympia. We're reaching to Mary and Pat from Guidon Bear. Just released a record that just came out not too long ago. Very impressive record. We're going to talk about it. I've been listening to it a lot, called Internal Systems. And I just want to thank you guys on air here for hopping on and joining me to share a little bit about your music.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks. Yeah.
So I was in my deep dive of trying to get my head around some questions that I'd like to ask you guys that aren't too typical. You guys have been collaborating for 25 years, or this collaboration has been going on for 25 years. How did you guys originally run into one another? I had read a couple of stories, but I want to get it on record here. We'll put it down on tape. What was that occasion where you guys first met, and maybe not started a band, and then how that evolved into the band?
When I was running a record label and recording studio called Yo-Yo Recordings in the 90s, I would do this routine where I would make compilations. And the compilations would be single songs taken from recording sessions. And so I would go to a band I wanted to record and say, hey, I'll do a recording session for you, and the cost of it'll be you putting the song on the compilation, and then I'll put out the compilation. And so I would go to shows often, and I saw Mary playing in a band. Can't remember what they were called, but anyway, the Clocks, right? And so after she was done playing, I invited her to record, and then she invited me to play drums.
So cool. On the recording that you were going to put on the compilation?
On the recording, we were making whatever was happening, which turned out to be the Little Red Car Wreck album, Motor Like a Mother.
Right. Which I just listened to. When I was looking through, I ran upon it. It's such a great, 1996, right? That was recorded in, just like, it brings you right back to the 90s. It's just, I loved it. It touches on all those wonderful aspects of that time when music was being created. Mary, where did you get your start though? Like, how did it all start for you? Like, when was music something that was inescapable in your life?
Yeah, it was. My dad played guitar and mostly was in different church bands, and I have pictures of me at 2 with a microphone singing. He would write these terrifying little horror songs for 2-year-olds. He had this one called Better Run Little Mary, Let's Run, about a monster chasing me, and I just would get really into it. And yeah, in the 70s, parenting was kind of different, I guess.
Right.
So it was kind of a lot of, just since I was really little, I was singing and being surrounded by people playing instruments. And then I guess when I was in high school was the first time I was in a band, and we played shows around New Jersey and parties and stuff. And then my band kicked me out because they got really into the Grateful Dead, and they're like, we don't need a singer anymore. And so then I was like, okay, well, I guess I really have to learn to play guitar now. And went to Evergreen and was just kind of, getting to know other musicians at Evergreen, and Mira I met, and we and Kayla from The Blow I met, and that's actually where Pat first saw me playing with the Clocks at her apartment. And so, yeah, it was just kind of I just kind of got lucky in that I fell into a group of really creative folks who were doing fun stuff and sharing resources. And I remember my first solo album was this really weird musical called Happy Halloween that I borrowed. Arrington Dioniso lent me his tape record, one of those Tascam,
right, little 4-track.
Yeah. So, and then from there, it just kept going. And for me, it's really therapy, because there's something about vibrations that kind of like calm me down and help me kind of like access how I'm feeling in a way that that I can't usually access. So
Right, right. Yeah, I've heard that from many artists talking about how they just can't stop because it's a part of the way their life flows. And if that part is taken out, everything gets thrown off balance. Because it's always a question I love to ask is what motivates you to keep doing this, like over all of these years. I mean, it's got to be something inside that's driving to keep going in that direction of keep writing and writing and writing and releasing materials. I'm sure you guys have other lives as well outside of music, as most musicians nowadays have to. Pat, I'd love to kind of know yours as well. Like where did it start for you, kind of like where music started to
I came from
infuse?
I came from a family that would just say, "Yeah, we don't do music. We're not musical." And I was like,
Okay.
"What?" And would like experiment. Like my brother got an electric guitar, and I'd always sneak and like play with it and listen to all the music that I'm the youngest of six, so I'd listen to all the music that they would play and listen to. And yeah, one of the things that really caught my ear when I was a young teen was there was a radio station in out of Philadelphia called WXPN in the 70s. Their
Hmm.
primetime show was really experimental music. And so I heard that mostly coming through my brother's door, but I listened to it as well, and it really influenced me. When I was a younger teen, I was very much into like Pink Floyd and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And so what we're doing now with synthesizers sort of makes my inner 14-year-old just delighted.
Wow.
And and yeah, and for me, the whole I know that if I'm in a band and playing music and I'm playing music with people that I care about and connect with, then I'm
Mm,
happy. It
right.
just that's just how it is. And you know, I'm in three great bands right now, so, this
Mm,
being the primary one. So yeah.
amazing, amazing. So it's kind of been your life is music, because I know also that you had your record label, you produce, you write. What how do you juggle all those different aspects of the music industry,
I
Pat?
don't really do much in the way of production anymore. I don't really record
Okay.
other bands unless I'm in them, and even then, it's a little iffy. I
Mm,
think I was an okay recording engineer and can still pull off a lot. You know, I have a lot of information and can track a signal and everything, but I don't know that I was
mhm,
necessarily like that great. I think that like the Little Red Car Wreck album is an example of like kind of the best that I could do as far as production.
mm.
So
Well, well, it's impressive.
yeah, and
I mean,
certainly,
I think it's a
certainly
very clean record too, eh? I
yeah.
mean,
Well,
the sound is great.
the most recent record is really just largely Mary's work.
Mm,
It's the choice of like arpeggiations and synthesizers and stuff, all that kind of thing was mainly hers. And what I would do on the record was just sort of make sure she had what she needed and make sure that it.
good.
I mean, my goal on this record and the last record is the result be that it be an album she loves.
Hmm. Hmm. Cool.
That's the most important thing.
And Mary, what's your songwriting process? Like, how did you write the songs that are on the latest release? Like, how do you go about um grabbing an idea and saying, okay, I'm going to develop this more, as opposed to, yeah, this idea I'll shelve for a bit? Like, do you have those two kind of dynamics going as through your writing process?
um well, I think that's a really interesting question, and I've been studying art therapy recently and
Mhm.
expressive arts therapy, and it's really interesting because I was wondering about that myself. Like, what is it for me? Like, when I'm gonna write a song that I like, sometimes I can like feel it
Mm.
coming. I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's basically like I think based on I did like a research paper on what is it sometimes that can give people access to this kind to their creative mind space. And I also
Mm.
took a songwriting class with Adrienne Lenker recently with my daughter, because
Oh,
my daughter is like
fun.
super fan and I love her too.
Mm.
And um she talked about some really interesting things that I think I had like an intuitive knowledge of, but never was able to explain with words. And she says something about unblocking. She had like three main components that she talks about, but one of them was unblocking. And to me, like that's the most important thing. And it's probably like the biggest challenge for a lot of people. And for me, I can kind of tell when my brain is sort of shifting into this space where I could have access to some feelings that I'm feeling that I don't know how to put words to. And so when I did research on it, it talks about how there's a certain state of mind that people are in when they are relaxed, and when when an artist is improvising, that is really different from when a person is trying to like be careful about the notes that they're playing and notice mistakes. So it's like this lack of judging. So it's like unblocking is kind of like this space where you're not judging, you're just like feeling and letting yourself, blah, 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 blah. But I can't always get into that headspace. Sometimes I can. And sometimes I can feel it coming. I'm like, no, I'm in a bad mood. I'm not picking up that guitar. And sometimes I just am like, picking it up and entering that space once I'm with the guitar. And then she also talks a little bit about drones and drone sounds. And I was like, yeah, because you enter this kind of like almost like a hypnotic state when you're hearing these drones making these droning kind of sounds, which is easy to do with the guitar. And so I would say like a lot of times I'm just playing around, and then when I can feel I'm starting to get into that headspace, I'll just like press record on my phone and just record whatever I'm coming up with. And then like sometimes the next day, and sometimes in like 20 minutes or 15 minutes, I'll be able to start kind of like putting together what it is that was coming out of me into something a little more coherent.
Right. I love the idea too that you kind of have the feeling that, okay, this feels good. This feels like something that has legs to it. Pat, when you hear those songs that Mary's writing, do you feel that same kind of connection that she might feel?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like I get to be in my favorite band. Oh, a new song. It's very exciting. And a lot of times new songs will be like, hey, I just wrote this song and we're going to play it tomorrow at the show. And I'm like, let's do it. Love it. Yeah, I've always really loved Mary's songwriting, and it has always been very moving to me. So yeah.
Right. And what connects you to it? Like I love how you describe that. It feels like the song's coming out, or it's like your band, like you're a part of it. Yeah. How does that? Is it just because you guys have been collaborating for all these years that there's almost this words aren't needed sense when you're sharing?
Oh, I don't know. There was a gap. We had children. There was about a 12-year gap, but it, just how a song moves. Like if something in me moves emotionally from just sort of my concern with like tasks or something to like, oh, wait, I can feel what I'm feeling. Oh, and I can relate to that, the emotion that's being conveyed. And then also, yeah, I mean, but it is also that I've had a front row seat, been invited to have a front row seat to a lot of what happens for Mary emotionally. And a lot of times, like practice will be, it'll be a song we'll play, and then we'll have these long conversations about just like therapy models, because I'm a therapist, and just about thought and feeling and creativity. It's I love it. I just love it. Amazing. I love setting aside my Saturday mornings when that works for our schedule to just like be practicing and be in relationship with Mary in that way. I'd rather be in a mediocre relationship. So.
Right. Right. And I mean, bands are relationship based, right? Like if you aren't jiving with one another, it won't last. So this is a test of time that the relationship is strong. Mary, please chime in.
Oh, and he's a really good sport. Like he was saying, like I have ADD, and so like I have a really hard time playing songs over and over again. Like when we go on tour, which isn't that often. But like, even when we're just playing around here, I'm like, oh, no, no, no. If we're going to play a show, I have to write a new song or two, because and sometimes like I don't get it done until the day before, and he's a really good sport and is just like, hey, let's just have fun with it. And both of us are kind of like, I kind of feel like it's really good for people to see people messing up on stage, young people, especially when, I don't know, I feel like, because my kids are like 19, 23, and 29, I kind of feel like the world of social media has made people extra kind of like nervous about putting themselves out there. And so you have to either be like really brave, or you're not going to maybe do it. So I like getting on stage and making mistakes for the folks who are like a little tentative about putting themselves out there. Cause I can be a perfectionist, and I'm trying to get better at not being a perfectionist. And I just want to help other people. like you guys should be up here. Okay. So come on up here and make some mistakes like we do.
That's great though, to have children have that in their mind, that mistakes are good. I tell that to my teachers and students all the time, that if you're not making mistakes, you're not really learning. You're memorizing and it's rote. But to get to the passion and the creativity into, an open mindset, you've got to accept mistakes. People with fixed mindsets hate when I come into class, because they know I'm going to make them do stuff that they're going to be uncomfortable with. But it changes them for the good, I think. So really fascinating what you're saying, Mary. Mary, I wanted to ask you too, that what does Pat bring to your music that I don't want to say changes it, but brings it to a level that you see his vision? Like, what are the components that Pat, supports you with?
Well, I would say he is like willing to put up with me. That's a pretty big one, because I'm a really difficult person. Anyone will tell you that I can be really difficult and picky, and I'm just like, a lot of times I don't know what I want, and then he can be like, well, how about this? And he just has this really like, he has this patience that I honestly don't think I can think of anyone who has the patience that he has. I can't think of anyone. Like, and also we're from like an area of New Jersey that's pretty close, and he's from like even closer to where my dad grew up. So I feel like we just have this kind of like cultural like understanding of each other, and although he grew up listening to like really different music than what I grew up listening to, because he's like a little bit older.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of like in between my dad's generation and my generation. Like, okay. So he brings like a different kind of sound history, but we're connected enough to where like I feel like he understands what I'm saying and what I want to try, and he's just super willing to try new things and take risks and hammer things out when things need to be hammered out. Like,
do you, when you bring him a song, Mary, do you give him an idea of what your vision is and say, this is kind of what the sound I was looking for, or maybe we need some drums or some synth, or like, how do you deliver the song to Pat with that openness of expression?
Mm-hmm. Well, like for the last song that I wrote, which is not on the album, it's a song about going on tour. Like I had like kind of like the guitar, the vocals, and then maybe like one tiny little keyboard part that I wasn't like, I hadn't really developed at all. And so, like Pat's listening to it, and he's helping me think about how we can, get the things all pulled together, all the sounds pulled together in the way that they need to be pulled together. And you can speak to that more.
Yeah. Mary had an arpeggiation that she recorded, like she described, on her phone just from the speaker. And then we had a hard time recreating that arpeggiation. So I just took the voice memo that she had texted me, and I made it into a loop, and I EQ'd it so it was a little fuller. And then we worked out where it would come in and what it would do. And then the other thing was that because the song was about tour, and we had just been on tour and it had been a really, for me, it had been a very, very connecting experience. I felt like I understood the feel that she was going for on it. So I like was able to bring the drums in, asked her how she wanted, like if this was what she wanted. And I thought it came out really, really well. It's a song that I feel really moved to play because it was very much a part of my experience. So yeah, it's the creative. When we were done with making that, we both kind of looked at each other and just said about the creative process, I love doing this.
Nice. What song was that, by the way? Just
well,
out of curiosity.
It's called Ride Into the Beast, and it's basically just about how miserable tour was, and mostly because it's basically like a job. You always forget it's a job where, I mean, I'm sure it's fun for some people who are not don't have this punishment schedule. It's fun for him even with the punishment schedule, but like we just were like drive, play, and there were like no real breaks for the first like 4 or 5 days. Then we had a couple days off, but then again, it's like drive, load, play, drive, load, play. And the amount of time that you're playing is magical, and even more magical to see the other bands for me, because like I always am like just so interested in seeing these little like micro music cultures. I lived in Spain for a couple years ago, and I was just like in love with like, it was in Basque country, like this microculture that I was observing where there's this new wave music that 20-year-olds were playing. And I was like, oh my God, this is so good. And like every little subculture, like Salt Lake City, these amazing young folks, and also these amazing venues with these intergenerational spaces in these kind of rural towns. And I am just in love with like showing up to these spaces and seeing what's there. But I also have like pretty bad anxiety. And I feel fine when I'm on stage. And I feel fine when I'm watching other bands, but I have like pretty hard crippling anxiety when it comes to like those in-between moments. And so that's hard for me, whereas Pat's good at like talking to people in those in-between moments. I just want to hide because I'm like, oh God, I don't know how to really what to say. And so yeah, the song is mostly just about how hard tour was, but also how it's when you do something hard, there are these magical moments that pop up that make it worth it. So one of the venues that we played at was a vegan bistro, and the address was 666. And so, and it was like a really kind of magical little community that was there in Salt Lake City. And so the refrain is like, ride into the beast, love is rising from the beast 666. So.
Wow. Oh, amazing. Love that story. That's really interesting. What's the biggest difference that you guys find between Unravel and this latest? So Unravel came out a few years ago, right?
Right.
Again, excellent record. But what do you find the biggest differences are, Pat? Maybe I'll throw this your way, between those two recordings that you guys did together.
The recording process.
Okay.
A dear friend of ours, Ken Levy, recorded that for us and did an excellent job and was very good at kind of moving us out of the lo-fi sound that Olympia has sort of a tradition of. And but with this record, Mary was recording it at home, and I said, oh, you could use some monitor speakers. So I just brought monitor speakers over and put them in. And oh, here, I'll leave my best vocal mic in your space for as long as it takes. And then I would come over and I would just, so to make the distance between Mary's creative process and the creation of the recording as seamless as possible, in my mind, is what makes this album. Love Unravel, love the work that we did, love making the music video and all that. But this one seemed to me to kind of do the thing that I've been hoping could happen for Mary and her process and getting recordings down.
For sure. Well, I mean, I mentioned this too before we hopped on, but TV Screen, that your first track off of the latest record, I mean, that opening synth line, I mean, can you talk to me, either one, about how that particular song came to be? Because I do think it's like an amazing song. I just can't get enough of it.
I will say one thing about that song is that my sort of conventional thinking about putting out records, I'll always offer it, but usually I'm wrong. Like I was like, hey, maybe we want to like make that 2 songs and have it so it can be a shorter song at the beginning. Bad idea.
Not necessarily, but I was just
right.
like, no.
And so when Mary rejects the ideas that I bring, I've learned really to be like, oh, okay, yes, because her intuition seems to be spot on. But I feel like it's important to offer the perspective. And
Sure.
but Mary, what do you want to say?
Yeah, Mary, what's the origin of TV Screen? Where'd that come from?
I mean, a lot of the songs on the album have their origin in my work with a therapist who does internal family systems therapy and helps me kind of reflect on the different parts of me and how they're trying to like help me in different ways. And TV Screen is really about me thinking about my addiction to TV. I have a real hard time going to sleep at night, and a lot of times I addictively watch shows, which makes it worse, or addictively read books, or addictively listen to podcasts or whatever. And like I started trying to like analyze myself based on what am I watching and how is this making me feel. Like I noticed I watch a lot of shows that have like apocalypse type of themes, and I'm like, well, I think a lot of what I'm doing is trying to make myself feel better about my own life by watching these like fucked up like worlds and thinking like, well, at least I'm not like in outer space and my mom isn't dying in the airlock or, you know, like whatever. I'm not being murdered by the Peaky Blinders, you know, like so a lot of it is self-soothing, just a weird kind of self-soothing until I can fall. So
yeah. Well, I share your sleeping issue and your anxiety issue, as you might have noticed throughout this. But I mean, these are our battles, and I think it really informs some really amazing songwriting. Without that exploration, I think that I don't know if they would be as, I don't know, connecting, you know, or me connecting with them. So kind of, I mean, amazing stories, guys. I mean, I wish I did more than just half an hour, but maybe we'll see you the next record around. But to kind of close things up, like, so the record came out, and like, what is the rest of 2024 look for Guidon Bear?
I think like going back to our real lives and tending to the responsibilities we perhaps neglected while we were away. Mary has got a new job, and definitely, you know, like whatever we can fit in with as busy as we are, like to start to work on the next thing and just, you know, keep chasing that happiness that we talked about after working on that one song.
And we already have 3 new songs. I want to do more Spanish language songs because it's super fun for me. And I'm working actually at a prison right now and teaching music, which is like I've never done before. Thanks to Pat, like I've learned a lot of equipment. And it's young men, 17 to 21-year-old, like a high school music program. And so I just feel really excited. They're amazing people, and I get to like play songs for them, and they're just like into it. I'm like, you guys like this? This isn't your stuff, but they're like, we gotta get you to sing on our raps or whatever, and super
so
lucky
cool
for me because I get to practice my Spanish a lot, and so I want to make another. I want to make more songs and get better at writing them in Spanish, and I love mixing genres, and I think it's just a matter of, for me, I'm super like, oh God, we have to start recording. It feels a little bit like a chore sometimes, so I have to kind of get over that and just get better at like when the songs come, like not waiting for so long to record.
Right, amazing. Well, I wish this collaboration health and success for many years to come. Records come, they'll come again. But this has been really, really fun talking to the two of you. I love when I can get two members together and kind of bounce off of one another. A real treat. Some really insightful words that you guys shared with us as well. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you.
It's really nice to talk with you too, Chris.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Take care.
You too.
I watch this TV Jersey gangster in Birmingham with PTSD. A young girl in a dance contest who's not conventionally pretty. Can I fall asleep now? Have the drugs kicked in? I'm just a voyeur because I can't speak to this feeling. Do I feel acceptance? Do I feel connection? 11 lead blankets between me and them. Body mental to the screen people. Watch other people's nightmares. Do they parade in strangers like me until the drugs kick in? Hey. I watch this TV screen. I watch this telephone screen. Looking for simplified complexity. Characters whose redemption I complete. What do I find? What do I find? What do I find? What do I find? There's a man trapped in a hotel. If he leaves, he'll be shot. There's a girl in the desert being hunted by a dog. There's a woman who calls the sun into her hands, but she's trauma bonded with a secret monster from the past. A boy in 1941, the guy has to find a dozen eggs. Substitute teacher in Argentina, nobody listens to. There's a man trapped inside of a wall in his house for 20 years. Over up his people won't find him out. What do I find? What do I find? What do I find? There's a chef trying to save his dead brother's restaurant. There's an 18th century whipping of a stat. A man doing atrocities, but he'd rather write folk songs. A lady with road rage who's trying to climb a social rung. A gay math genius in jail who helped win World War II. Family whose son's released from prison, they don't know what to do. A lady trapped in her husband's dream, she just wants to die. A girl in a secret apartment working puzzles all night. What do I find? What do I find? What do I find? What do I find? Can I fall asleep now? Have the drugs kicked in? I'm just a voyeur because I can't speak to this feeling. Do I feel acceptance? Do I feel connection? 11 lead blankets between me and them. Body and to the screen people. Watch other people's night.